Good evening, everyone, from Eastern Canada, actually Hamilton, Ontario, which is in the golden horseshoe of this country. We have over 14 million people that live in this area. And we have had this Krishna consciousness mission here in Hamilton, where I reside, since 1970. Yes. The devotees first came here from Buffalo, New York in 1969, and they chanted on the streets here, and we had a chance to meet them at the time. Of course, I had an argument with them that it was hard to believe what they were saying had any real merit. But nonetheless, as Krishna would arrange, we became disciples of Srila Prabhupada in 1971 in July in Detroit, Michigan. And so time is marching on. I was talking to our friend Vinyak Sharma in Japan this week. And he mentioned how fast time is moving in Japan, in Tokyo. Of course, time moves for everyone at the same velocity, but the perception is different depending on your lifestyle. And we should always remember that time and tide wait for no man. It doesn't matter who they are, where they are. In the material universe, time is a factor in everyone's life. And we can think we'll live on forever in this illusion of life, but the fact of the matter is that everyone is subject to birth and death. For one who is born, death is certain. And Krishna explains, for one who has died, birth is certain. So this cycle of birth and death, samsara, the cycle of birth and death, birth, death, disease, and old age, the four miseries of life are concomitant with being born in this world. Yes. And if one wants to utilize their time to the absolute most successful end, one has to take up Krishna consciousness. The knowledge of all of us that we are all eternal servants of Krishna. That's an interesting philosophical position that most people can't accept. They just don't. Afflicted by the modes of nature, afflicted by false ego, afflicted by social position and money. People forget their real identity as servants of Krishna. Nicho Nichananam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Yo Bahuda Vedati Kaman. We are the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord incarcerated in the material body, the prison house of the material body. And this illusion keeps us stuck in this cycle of birth and death. So Prabhupada's mercy on us. He came to the West in 1965 and started the Hare Krishna movement. And he undertook many austerities to begin the movement. That's why we read these diaries, entries from him. These are here. Just see this. So fantastic, actually. The beginning. I got this diary, Garuda Prabhu, from Brahmananda and Gargamuni came to my house in the 90s when they were traveling, and these books came out, and they sold me a bunch of books. I've got these conversation books, 37 volumes of them. I have them downstairs in one of my libraries. And these diaries are very valuable for us and for everyone here on this call, because the Prabhupada Disciples Association is about preserving the legacy of Srila Prabhupada in his unadulterated, unedited books, in his teachings that he gave us in his letters and his lectures. So all of these items constitute Prabhupada's Vani incarnation. Was reading a very interesting section of Anjalila today, how Krishna, his form, his pastimes, his holy name are non-different than him. And remember this, everyone, even if we're in the neophyte stage of spiritual life, that Prabhupada is an avatar, Acharya, a representative via media of his spiritual master and of Lord Chaitanya. This cannot be minimized. We were talking, myself and Yashodanandana Prabhu, and I was mentioning to him that everything that Prabhupada said is Shastra, just like everything that Lord Chaitanya spoke was Shastra. And when you read Prabhupada's letters, when you hear his lectures, and especially when you read his books, we were talking about this, somehow or other, it appears that many people don't read Prabhupada's books. They preach, they present philosophy, but it's not infused with the connection that the Prabhupada Disciples Association has with the pure devotee, the bona fide spiritual master. And this is the essence of spiritual knowledge. It is the essence of spiritual practice. And ultimately, it is the gateway to spiritual realization. Realization is not possible, Bhaktaran Singh, without a connection to the spiritual master who's connected to Krishna. One who says he is my devotee is not my devotee. But one who is the devotee of my devotee, he is my devotee. So our position is to always remain the servant of our spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And as you know, Garuda Prabhupada told me this in this way at my initiation. He said, never think you're the chief engineer, but the servant of the chief engineer. In this way, you can become great. And greatness means Krishna consciousness. So we're going to go to these different days in the diary of Srila Prabhupada here in March 1966 on the 23rd. And there's some very interesting pastimes. Remember, Prabhupada is living in an office, basically with no bathroom and no cooking facilities. So he's just got his desk there and a cot, but at least he's away from this Dr. Mishra, the Mayavadi, who he's helping with his kirtan. So He's on his own here, and these are interesting sections, by the way, everyone. So please contemplate these, what's happening to Prabhupada in these early days. No disciples, no real books except the ones from India, and no association from his godbrothers or help, period. So it's Wednesday, the March 23rd, sunrise 5:58 a.m., sunset 6:17 p.m., and moonset 8:59 p.m. Tritya. One letter of mayor's office replied, informed that I shall wait to see Mr. Lindsay. He is free to talk with me. One letter sent to the director, Library of Congress, Washington, D.C., asking for the library card of my Srimad Bhagavatam. Joan paid me $5 contribution. Thank you. In the doctor's apartment, there were 10 to 11 members, and I cooked for them all. Today's meeting, only 2 gentlemen attended, therefore I did not record the speeches, no expenditure. Again, just to remind everyone, you can go to Prabhupada Vani. He was recording these lectures he was giving for 2-3 people that were showing up at his room, and they're recorded on Prabhupada Vani. So you can go right back in time and connect directly to Prabhupada and feel the transcendental potency and the mercy of Prabhupada back in the early days. Thursday, 24th of March, sunrise 5:57, sunset 6:18 p.m., moon sets at 10:17 p.m. Chaturi. No letter received today. It is understood that the SS Jaladuta is on the New York port. Mr. Forrester could not be contacted on phone. Message left for conveying to Captain Pandya. He may come today. The temple houses seem to be occupied, but not now whether sold or rented. I am mortified. Let Sri Krishna's wish may be fulfilled, but it is a great shock to me if it is now gone to others. So he's been searching for a location. Captain Pandya with Mrs. Pandya came to see me. They were happy, and I was so pleased to see them. They will come tomorrow again. I have instructed them to see Srimati Mukherjee in Bombay and talk with her about my letters. There was a meeting today, 3 ladies and 3 gentlemen. Besides the captain and wife, that's 8 people attended the meeting. Mr. Robert brought some fruits and grains for me, no income and no expenditure. Okay, and we'll go on to March 25th, everyone, back in 1966, at that apartment, so-called room he was occupying. Sunrise, 5:55 a.m., sunset, 6:18 p.m., moonset, 8:07, Panchami. Today, one letter received from Brindavan, Chandraday, Calcutta, India. Meeting in the evening, 7 ladies and gentlemen attended the meeting. Captain and Mrs. Pandya also were there. Income was $22. Everyone brought some fruits and grains. There were 2 newcomers, an address taken, and no expenditures. So you see the pace. And look at this picture. Look at that picture of greatness. See, look at how beautiful Prabhupada's space is. No facility. Somehow or other he's erected a Vyasasan and working away humbly, far away from Radha Damodar temple. Not much facility, that's for sure, compared to being in India, how glorious that was for him. But here he is in New York City, trying to reach all of us. And he did. That's why we're here today. Saturday, March 26th, Sunrise 5:53 a.m., sunset 6:19 p.m., moonset 11:18 p.m. Shasti, today, read this. When I came back from Dr. Mishra's apartment at 1 p.m., I saw my window on the door broken, and entering the door, I saw my tape recorder, typewriter, and books bag stolen. A separate note is written in this connection. At 2 p.m., Mrs. Labland came to take me to ashram, and I went there. The whole thing was upset. Purchased 1 bottle of sour salt and no income. Just think how terrible that is. Prabhupada has nothing, and people come and steal whatever little items he was using for his preaching work. His tape recorder, typewriter, and book bag. How terrible. But it certainly didn't deter him. On March 27th, 1966. Is that it? Yes. Okay, so that's the end of this particular section of the reading. Now we'll move forward with the chanting of Jaya Radha Madhava, the bhajan Prabhupada used before presenting classes. And we'll have our weekly reading and discussion with Yashodanandana Prabhu, Prabhupada's dear disciple, and my dear friend. And we'll have a discussion with all of our God brothers globally on these subject matters for a little bit of time during this week. We spend 4.5 hours a week at these programs, but they're very valuable for everyone that wants devotee association, Guru, Shastra, Sadhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to the Sankirtan movement.
Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, Prem se Gaur Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Sri Radha Krishna Gaur Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai, Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Dham ki jai, Swami Ito Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Ganga Mai ki jai, Jamuna Mai ki jai, Tulasi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Swami Ito Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you from Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1:1. Narayanam namaskritya Narayanam namaskritya Naram cheva narottamam Naram cheva narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Tato Jayam Mudirayat. One should utter the means of conquest, Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of God and Narayana, 2, to the Naranarayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, from Srimad Bhagavatam 1-4. Welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. As we do every week, we will be reading a few selected verses from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita himself, from chapter 1 of the Adi Lila, text 18 through 22. This gives us a glimpse of the meaning and the transcendental benefit of hearing this great transcendental literature. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Glory to Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda. Glory to Advaita Chandra, and glory to all the devotees of Sri Gaura, Lord Chaitanya. Text number 19. 18 Thakur Gaudiya ke karyecheno yatmasat, 18 Charana Vandan Tirimorinat. These three deities of Vrindavana, Madan Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinatha, have absorbed the heart and soul of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, followers of Lord Chaitanya. I worship their lotus feet, for they are the lords of my heart. Text number 20. Grantera Rambi Kori Mangala Charana, Guru Vaishnava Bhagavan Tinera Smarana. In the beginning of this narration, simply by remembering the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord, and the personality of Godhead, I have invoked their benedictions. Text number 21. Tinera smaraneyai vigna vinashana, anayaseyai nijavanchita purana. Such remembrance destroys all difficulties and very easily enables one to fulfill his own desires. Text number 22. Se mangala charanoi trivida prakar vastunir desha shiravhada namaskara. The invocation involved three processes: defining the objective, offering benedictions, and offering obeisances. As we do every week, we read a few selected patches from some of Srila Prabhupada's lecture where Prabhupada explains the importance of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. What we'll be reading is from a lecture on Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 7.1 in Mayapur on March 1, 1974. A lecture on March 1st, 1974. Srila Prabhupada says, this is the place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, appearance site of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sridham Mayapur. So in this place, this is the appropriate literature, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We may try to discuss during these holy days. Last year, some gentlemen suggested, after seeing my all literatures, that you kindly write a translation of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. He thought that this business I can do very nicely. So I took the initiation from this gentleman and began to write. Now it is almost complete. I'm now translating Madhya Lila, 20th chapter. The discussion, Sanatan Shiksha. It is estimated that 10 volumes like this, you think like that, 10 volumes like this, that will complete Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita is the postgraduate study of Krishna consciousness. The Bhagavad Gita is the ABCD to entrance, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the graduate study, and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is the postgraduate study of spiritual life. My Guru Maharaj is Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada. Whenever he got some time, he used to read Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he predicted that the whole world liked to read Chaitanya Charitamrita, and for this reason they'll learn Bengali. Therefore, following his footsteps, have kept the Bengali character and tried to give the literary meaning of each word of the Bengali poem. This, of course, Sanskrit. This book is full of Sanskrit verses. Some of them are composed by the author himself, Kaviraj Goswami, and some of them are quoted from various literature, Vedic literature. So the author is accepting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Agati Ekagatim. Agati means movement, and Gati means also destination. So Agati, at the present moment, especially in this age of Kali, people are not moving. Moving means we are moving. This moving is not very good. Moving means material movement. Moving, we are not. Not that we are not moving, but we are moving. But Agati, we do not know what is the destination of the movement in this age. The trees are not moving, but we are not moving. But we are moving. But that movement has not very much improved our condition. Real movement means to go forward to reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Natevituhu Svartagatim. Svartagatim. This gatim again, as it is said, gatim. The same word is used in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Svartagatim. Why one should move? Unless one knows the destination, the goal of life, why one should move forward. So at the present moment, they are moving, but they do not know which side they should move. That is the defect of this age, Kali Yuga. Mandaha sumanda matayaha. Sumanda matayo manda bhagyahyu padrutaha. but they are moving, but not very rapidly. The real purpose of movement is Svartagatim, Vishnu. That they do not know. They do not know. The materialistic world at the present moment, that they do not know that where the movement should terminate, where is the destination, that they do not know. Nate Svartagatim hi Vishnum, nate viduhu. Not only in this age, that is the state of material life. Those who are passing in materialistic way of life, they are thinking that sense gratification is the ultimate goal of life. So in this way, Srila Prabhupada is nicely explaining the nature and the importance of this great literature, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. This week we will be reading from chapter 4, text number 166, all synonyms, translations, and purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Kamera tatparya nija samboja kevala, Krishna shuka tatparya matra primata parabala, Kamera of lust, tatparya the intent, nija own, sambhoga enjoyment, kevala only, Krishna sukha for Lord Krishna's happiness, tatparya the intent, matra only, prema love, ta certainly, prabhala powerful. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The object of lust is only the enjoyment of one's own senses, but love caters to the enjoyment of Lord Krishna, and thus it is very powerful. Text 167 to 169. Loka dharma vida dharma deha dharma karma, lajja derya deha sukha atma sukha marma, dushtyaja aryapat nija parijan, svajane karaya yata tadana bhartsan, Sarvatyagi kari kari Krishnera bhajan, Krishna sukha itu kare prema sevan, loka dharma, customs of the people, Veda dharma, Vedic injunctions, Deha dharma, necessities of the body, Karma, fruitive work, Lajja, bashfulness, Derya, patience, Deha sukha, the happiness of the body, Atmasukha, the happiness of the self, Marma, the essence, Dustyaja, difficult to give up, Aryapata, the path of Varnashrama, Nija, own, Parijana, family members, Svajane, one's own family, Karaye, do, Yata, all, Tadhana, punishment, Bhartsana, scolding, Saravatyaga kari, giving up everything, Kare, do, Krishnera, of Lord Krishna, Bhajana, worship, Krishna sukha hetu, for the purpose of Lord Krishna's happiness, Kare, do, Prema, out of love, Sevana, service. Translation. Social customs, scriptural injunctions, bodily demands, fruitive action, shyness, patience, bodily pleasures, self-gratification in the path of Varnashram Dharma, which is difficult to give up. The gopis have forsaken all these, as well as their own relatives and their punishment and scolding, for the sake of serving Lord Krishna. They render loving service to him for the sake of his enjoyment. Text 170. Iha ke koye Krishna dridhanurag, svacha dhota vastriye che nahi kono dhag. Iha ke, this, kahiye, I say, Krishna, in Lord Krishna, dhrida, strong, anuraga, love, svacha, pure, dhauta clean, vastre in cloth, yaiche just as, nahi not, kona some, daga mark. Translation: that is called firm attachment to Lord Krishna. It is spotlessly pure, like a clean cloth that has no stain. Purport: the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita advises everyone to give up all engagements of sense gratification and, like the gopis, dovetails oneself entirely with the will of the Supreme Lord. That is the ultimate instruction of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. We should prepare to do anything and everything to please the Lord, even at the risk of violating the Vedic principles or ethical laws. That is the standard of love of Godhead. Such activities in pure love of Godhead are as spotless as white linen that has been completely washed. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur warns us in this connection that we should not mistakenly think that the idea of giving up everything implies the renunciation of duties necessary in relation to the body and mind. Even such duties are not sense gratification if they are undertaken in a spirit of service to Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhakti Vedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Bhagavad Vandanam Khadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadatihi Visheshatah Adadhana Strinam Danter Idam Yache Punaha Punaha Srimadrupa Padam Bhoja Dhulishyam Janma Janmani Amsho Bhagavato Smyaham Sadadasu Asmi Sarvatam Tat Kripa Pikshago Nityam Tat Prishta Sad Karomi Svam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So here in this section of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see that Krishnadas Kaviraj is elaborating upon several verses that have occurred prior to this week's reading. In text number 165, it is described, Atmendriya Pritivansha Tare Balinam Kam, Krishnendriya Pritivansha Dhari Premanam. The desire to gratify one's own senses is kama, lust, but the desire to please the senses of Lord Krishna is prema, love. In the purport, in the third paragraph, Prabhupada says, the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita asserts with authority that sexual love is a matter of personal sense enjoyment. All the regulative principles in the Vedas pertaining to desires for popularity, fatherhood, wealth, and so on are different phases of sense gratification. Acts of sense gratification may be performed under the cover of public welfare, nationalism, religion, altruism, ethical codes, biblical codes, health directive, fruitive action, bashfulness, tolerance, personal comfort, liberation from material bondage, progress, family affection, or fear of social ostracism or legal punishment. But all these categories are different subdivisions of one substance, sense gratification. So we see here that Krishna Kaviraj is elaborating upon this because he wants to make sure that everything is very clearly understood. Very important to understand. The acharyas, or purva acharyas, or predecessor acharyas, and Srila Prabhupada, the current acharya of the Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya, makes everything very clear with their instructions and their writings and their personal example of what is bhakti. It is clearly explained. It is clearly defined. Why are they taking the trouble to give so much detail? So that people would not be misled by the false propaganda of pretenders, professional Bhagavatam reciters, professional gurus, and so many other deviants. We see after the departure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in 1534 AD, that for some time the Krishna consciousness preaching movement went from the Navadvip followers of Lord Chaitanya to the Vrindavan followers of Lord Chaitanya, the six Goswamis, particularly Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Jiva Goswami, who have written elaborate description on the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, elaborate description of the process of bhakti. Now it's important to note the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which according to some scholars was completed in 1612 AD. Jiva Goswami departed from this world in 1608 AD, according to his will that he made at the Radha Damodar temple. And in 1612, the Chaitanya Charitamrita was completed. And later on, afterwards, the preaching, the mantle of the preaching was passed on to Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamananda Prabhu, and Srinivasacharya. There are very interesting descriptions in a book that was compiled by one Narahari Thakur called the Bhakti Ratnakar, which is basically the history of the Gaudiya Sampradaya from the early days of Advaita Acharya, Nityananda Prabhu, the life and activities of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the six Goswamis, and the great disciples of these six Goswamis who carried on the preaching, particularly Narottam Das Thakur and Janava Mata, the wife of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Now it's interesting to note that in that book, in chapter 10, there's a description of a big festival that was organized by Narottam Das Thakur and presided by the wife of Nityananda Prabhu, Janava Mata. This was done in 1572 in Keturi, what is now called Bangladesh. In those days was East Bengal. Keturi was the birthplace, or very close to the birthplace of Narottam Das Thakur, and the local king made arrangements to bring all the different followers and different branches of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to this place. And they were going to install 6 different deities in a beautiful temple. And this was a meeting that took several days. It was presided over, as we said, by Janava Mata. And there were many discussions, philosophical discussions, to basically convene the proper understanding of Gaudiya Vaishnava theology. Because we do know, according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had empowered Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami to go to Vrindavan to discover or rediscover the places of Lord Krishna's pastimes and to write books on the science of Krishna consciousness. sometimes some scholars or uninformed scholars will criticize that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not write a commentary on Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam or Vedanta Sutra. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as we know, only wrote 8 verses, the Shikshastakam. Srila Prabhupada one time in one lecture commented that the writings of the 6 Goswamis, this is the purport on the Shikshastakam. Now we do know that Jiva Goswami alone wrote more than 400,000 verses, the equivalent of 400,000 verses. A verse would be called an Anustup verse of 32 syllables. Rupa Goswami wrote another 100,000 verses. Sanatan Goswami similarly wrote so many different commentaries. Gopal Bhatta Goswami compiled the Hari Bhakti Vilas. He compiled other literatures. So the total amount of these literatures is almost 600,000 verses. And Prabhupada commented, that is the purport of the Gaudiya Vaishnavacharyas on the Shikshastakam of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So to come back to this festival of Keturi in East Bengal, what is most remarkable is that these great acharyas like Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasacharya, Shyamasundar, and there were hundreds of devotees who came from all parts of Bengal, northern India, and Orissa to attend this big meeting. This was like a very, very big issue, just like in Christian theology, they had the Council of Nicaea in 312, 315 AD, where they assembled to discuss their theological understanding, or whatever understanding they have about the position of Jesus Christ. Similarly, these followers of Lord Chaitanya, they have this beautiful festival, and Janava Mataji personally cooked for many of the devotees. For the devotees, they had beautiful installation of 6 different deities and wonderful kirtan arranged and sung by Narottam Das Thakur and other famous kirtaniyas. So what is very interesting in that book that I described, the Bhakti Ratnakar in chapter 10, there is reference that in that one of these kirtans, the Panchatattva, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Advaita Prabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Srivas, and Gadadhar, who by that time in 1572 AD had already departed from this plane, that they all appeared in front of everyone and they danced, and everyone had this wonderful darshan, this special unique darshan, vision of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu dancing in a Panchatattva. This was a very, very important event in the history of the Gaudiya Sampradayas, because at that time, there were numerous followers of Advaita Prabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, different descendants of Lord Nityananda, so many different devotees with different interpretations, different angles of understanding of the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Janava Mataji, who was regarded as the consort of Lord Nityananda, a very empowered personality in Gaudiya Vaishnavas, for some time she was like the Acharya of this Sampradaya. So she arranged to convene that meeting to redirect, to focus the energies of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. Then a few years later, she went to Vrindavan, and she went to Radhakund and everything. She met Jiva Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and some of the exalted personalities living in Vrindavan. So this was a very special event. But what is most remarkable, just like as part of these discussions here on Wednesdays and the weekends, we've discussed how sometimes there are certain events in the history of Vaishnavism that defy logic, that are beyond the comprehension of our material senses. Just like in this event in Keturi in 1574, the Panchatattva, who had already departed, they all came and assembled and danced directly. Everybody saw them. And this was recorded in that historical book, the Bhakti Ratnakar. So this is a very important point, because right around that time in 1580 AD in South India, there was one great Vaishnava named Raghavendra Swami. Raghavendra Swami was born in South India. He was a follower, Vaishnava followers of Madhvacharya. And basically, he was a fierce opponent of the Mayavad philosophy. He was a very powerful debater. He wrote a lot of books and commentaries on the teachings of Madhva, Jayatirtha, Vyasatirtha. And at the end of his life, at around 1690, he entered his samadhi, his tomb, while he was still alive. In the history of the Madhva Sampradaya, there's just a few people who departed their bodies. They just went into their tomb. We know that Madhvacharya departed from his body a few hundred years earlier while he was commenting upon the Aitareya Upanishad in Udupi across the Krishna temple. There is a temple, another temple across the Krishna temple in Udupi. Madhvacharya used to give lectures there. And right during that lecture, he ascended to higher realm, back to the spiritual world. So fast forward to this devotee in late 1690s, he entered his samadhi still alive and predicted that he would remain there for 700 years to bless all the Vaishnava devotees. So similarly, at that time in the Vaishnava Sampradaya of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have so many events, very important events. Although later on, by the teachings and writings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explained that for a few hundred years, from the 1700 to the 1800s, there was a lot of difficulty in the Gaudiya Sampradayas. He wrote about 13 Apa Sampradayas that had emerged by the time he started to preach in the 1850s, 1870s. He had a regular journal called Sajjana Toshani, where he was describing this. That's why he tried to revive the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he prayed to have a powerful son who could help him to preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that son was His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Incidentally, his appearance day tomorrow, very special day. We're supposed to fast half a day. I'm referring to the Mayapur calendar here. So today we have seen numerous writings from Bhakta Rupesh, Venkat Bhatta Prabhu, and others who've sent out beautiful writings and summaries of the life of this great, powerful Acharya, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So these are just a few historical glimpses of important events in the history of our Sampradaya. Let us just hope that we always remain fixed at the lotus feet of these great Acharyas. He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. Srila Prabhupada's instruction to the Srimad Bhagavatam in New Delhi, 1962. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. All glories to the disciplic succession from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to our Guru, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who gives us insight on how to be renounced in the world of attachment. In this society, attachment is the symbol of success. But real success is detachment from everything material. Fundamentally, why? Because it's all an illusion. It's not real. Maya. And the false ego, it promotes this attachment to name and fame, to property, to money, to family. All these things, they're like ropes that bind us to this material world. And this is the disease. We're so captivated by the illusory energy, and it disqualifies one absolutely from making advancement. It's renunciation of everything that's related to personal growth or ambition, material ambition, that keeps us on the material plane and continues our repeated birth and death in this material world. So the science of Krishna consciousness, how to get out of this entanglement, has been very clearly articulated by Srila Prabhupada. It's not by wearing pink robes. A lot of people think, oh, this person has accepted this particular ashram, therefore they must be a pure devotee, or they are at some exalted level of spiritual realization, or they're going to liberate me from the bondage of repeated birth and death. When they're not liberated, this is Maya. This is the reality of the modern times that we live in. So many fake gurus thinking that they can establish a guru business for personal motive, which will make them happy and their disciples. This is a mistake. And I wanted to, if we could, go to the Bhagavad Gita, text 57, chapter 18, because in this particular verse, and especially the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains concisely what is real renunciation and how to make advancement in spiritual life. Cetasa sarva karmani mai sanyasya matpara buddhi yogam upashritya machchita satatam bhava. Okay, look at that. That's beautiful. I don't know what it is, but it looks quite nice. In all activities, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. So here, this purport, we'll read this purport because it gives us a real insight into how to become Krishna conscious. Purport: when one acts in Krishna consciousness, he does not act as the master of the world, just like a servant. One should not act fully under the direction. Just like a servant, one should act fully under the direction of the Supreme Lord. A servant has no individual independence. He acts only on the order of the master. A servant acting on behalf of the Supreme Master has no affection for profit and loss. He simply discharges his duty faithfully in terms of the order of the Lord. Now, one may argue that Arjuna was acting under the personal direction of Krishna, but when Krishna is not present, how should one act? If one acts according to the direction of Krishna in this book, as well as under the guidance of the representative of Krishna, then the result will be the same. The Sanskrit word matpara is very important in this verse, everyone. It indicates that one has no goal in life save and except acting in Krishna consciousness just to satisfy Krishna. And while working in that way, one should think of Krishna only. I have been appointed to discharge this particular duty by Krishna. While acting in such a way, one naturally has to think of Krishna. This is perfect Krishna consciousness. One should, however, note that after doing something whimsically, he should not offer the result to the Supreme Lord. This sort of duty is not in the devotional service of Krishna consciousness. One should act according to the order of Krishna. This is a very important point. The order of Krishna comes, here is the qualification, everyone. The order of Krishna comes through disciplic succession from the bona fide spiritual master. Therefore, the spiritual master's order should be taken as the prime duty of life. If one gets a bona fide spiritual master and acts according to his direction, then his perfection of life in Krishna consciousness is guaranteed. So this is renunciation. It is not giving up things. It's embracing the teachings of Srila Prabhupada and his directions to all of us. And it's important, everyone read the books, read the letters, attend these classes, chant your rounds, follow the principles, and spread Krishna consciousness according to the principles that are found in these particular books written by Srila Prabhupada. Yashodanandana Prabhu, please, if you could further comment.
This is a very important point you've raised here, because we see, although Prabhupada introduced the sannyas order in his society in 1967, that by 1977, 10 years later, he requested in a lecture in Bombay on the 7th of January 1977 that no more sannyas in his society, because there had been so many problems. And a few months later, Prabhupada started to mention that he had done 50% of his work by writing of his books. And he mentioned, I was personally present there in a conversation in Vrindavan in August of 1977. Prabhupada mentioned the other 50% is the introduction of Varnashram Dharma, self-sufficient forms, that he wanted all over his society. Prabhupada said, this is the other 50%. So what we saw in 1978-79 with these, what I call political sannyas, where people would recommend people to be sannyas in order to build their zonal empire or their zonal jurisdictions, this is nonsense. Prabhupada did not authorize that. We saw in January of 1977, how Srila Prabhupada said, no more sannyas, but some individuals who thought they knew better, they started this philosophy, let's increase it in a political way. That is not appropriate. That is a disobedience of Srila Prabhupada's instruction. It is not difficult to understand. Prabhupada wanted a society that would gradually become self-sufficient economically. Instead, what we saw was a so-called self-appointed acharyas, political sannyas, and so many devotees were kicked out of his movement for raising questions about what was going on. Prabhupada's instructions were neglected. Prabhupada once wrote a letter to Karandar. Prabhupada said, if there's any disturbance in our society, it means that the instructions of the spiritual master are being neglected. I'm paraphrasing. This is not very difficult to understand. One doesn't have to be a PhD in English, grammar, or Sanskrit, or a scholar to understand this. Because we saw when attempts were made to discuss major issues in 1978, all there was is a wave of accusation. Oh, you're all envious, you're all rascals, you're not team players, you're not accepting Prabhupada's instruction, all of this nonsense political garbage. Garbage. And 46 years later, even when you try to discuss it with some people, they're so blinded they can't understand. Prabhupada did not set up that current system. This is their concoction. We'll leave it at that for now. Hare Krishna. I'm sure there's quite a few devotees in here that probably have very important comments and questions.
Yeah,
Hare
we'll
Krishna.
call upon them to speak, because it's important for us to understand what real renunciation means. And this is a reflection of their ability or their capacity to serve the spiritual master without motive. because selflessness, the capacity to serve the spiritual master in Krishna with everything that you have, is the gateway to spiritual emancipation. For example, Yashodanandana Prabhu, the example of Jayananda, I think, is the most significant in many ways for all of us. And I'd like you to relate the story, because you were in the room when you heard Prabhupada say that Jayananda went back to Godhead. Now the question is, what did he do that was so extraordinary to qualify him to go back to Godhead? Was he a great sannyasi? Was he some kind of great scholar? Was he a great public speaker? Was he a great philosopher? Was he a great cook? Tell us, Yashodanandana, what qualified Jayananda to have the mercy of Prabhupada to say he went back to Godhead? Please.
Well, this is a very important issue. Prabhupada commented, I was in the room in 1977 in May, where I probably heard the news from Los Angeles that Jayananda had departed his body while hearing Srila Prabhupada's chanting of Hare Krishna and chanting Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada quoted that verse from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 9, Janma karma cha me divyam, and he started to cry. And he told his godbrother, O.B.L. Kapoor, that he went back to Godhead. So this is a very important point. Prabhupada was very, very happy with the tremendous service that Jayananda, everybody knows, when he came to the movement, he used to drive a taxi and give all the results, all of his money to Srila Prabhupada. He gave the money for the first printing of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And Prabhupada told him to go out and distribute it. So Jayananda was quite an exalted soul, although he appeared among us just like a regular devotee, but his attitude, his service attitude and his focus on Prabhupada was unrivaled. It was unequaled. He was absolutely a pure devotee. Always focused on Krishna, always focused on Srila Prabhupada. In 1976 at Mayapur, I had a chance to talk to Jayananda. And I asked him, well, why don't you take sannyas? He says, oh, no, I can't do that. I said, well, why couldn't you do that? He says, oh, that would be a disgrace to Vedic culture for me to take sannyas. His humility was quite astounding. And I've heard so many stories from a devotee named Murali Krishna, who used to be in Toronto, incidentally. He's from Buffalo, New York. And he spent quite a bit of time with Jayananda in 1976 when they were building the Rath Yatra in New York. And he told me so many similar stories of Jayananda's absolutely amazing humility and very hard working. Jayananda was very strong. He was almost 6'4", very stout, very strong. He used to be a mechanic. And he knew how to build Rath Yatra carts. And he would just work. It's absolutely amazing, his working capacity and his constant attachment to Krishna. Very, very special devotee. Very special devotee. A perfect example for all of us.
Yes. And, you know, it's true that spiritual position is not based on title. This can be very contaminating for people. Money is very contaminating for an aspiring disciple. But service attitude, according to the directions of Srila Prabhupada, like for example with our group, everyone, just so you know, our mission is to protect the legacy of Srila Prabhupada and his teachings in his books, his unadulterated, unedited books. We say it is it important? Oh, yes, it is. Because someone has to hear the transcendental sound from the lips of the pure devotee, not changed. That makes a big difference. Even one word makes a change. Our Prabhu was mentioning from Hawaii how someone was adding food coloring into halava in the kitchen with alcohol in it. Not a good idea. So change is very important, that we do not change anything. And this is a very important part of our mission. The instructions. People change the instructions to suit their own time and place. For example, one devotee wanted to change the books and brought the term in a Vyas Puja offering in 2002, which, by the way, someone could say, well, he wrote post-Prabhupada books and posed all these sort of ridiculous observations or calculations or misrepresentations in a very tricky manner, just like Keith Ham used to do, in a tricky manner, say things to people in such a way that they weren't sure if they should go left or right, and they go in the wrong way. And as a result, so many bad things happen. So these types of people are disturbing the very principle of making advancement for others. So our mission in your particular area, Dharma Bhavana, you're in Dallas, Texas. Now you've got a small community there of people that want to know the truth. They want to learn the philosophy without any change, because they've seen the results of people that change things, how it destroys everything. Maybe you could comment on this here at today's reading and discussion.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Yeah, actually, the whole class day was really good. We talked about the extraordinary things that the Supreme Personality of Godhead can do as a deity. And you're asking me to comment about unnecessary changes that are very much not constructive, but very much destructive. I don't know if I could think of any particular example besides the books, the deity worship, almost everything. And it seems to be kind of a collapsing situation that it's just, and people become, that are those who are accustomed to it, and you try to explain something to them that something is wrong. They're so dependent upon what they've been taught for maybe so many months and years that it's almost like you can't get through. So I kind of usually avoid those situations of being around people who are so accustomed to the changes. But I wanted to read a little bit from Chaitanya Charitamrita, if I could. Madhya Lila chapter 5. Is that okay? Madhya Lila chapter 5, text 76. In the middle of purport, it says, a pure devotee who has firm faith in the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be considered a most learned scholar, the topmost aristocrat, and the richest man in the whole world. All godly qualities automatically exist in such a devotee. In the preaching work of the Krishna consciousness movement, we, as the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, fully believe in the words of Krishna and his servants, the disciplic succession. In this way, we are presenting the words of Krishna throughout the world, even though we are neither a rich man nor a very learned scholar, and even though we do not belong to any aristocracy. This movement is still being welcomed and is very easily spreading all over the world. Although we are very poor to have no professional source of income, Krishna supplies money whenever we need it. Whenever we need some men, Krishna supplies them. Thus it is stated in Bhagavad Gita 6:22, Yam labdava chaparam labam manyate narikam tataha. Actually, if we can attain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, we do not need anything else. We certainly do not need those things which a mundane person considers to be material assets. And if I could just ask a question, say, for example, a devotee has a situation, your mind or your intelligence, you're depending upon Krishna is telling you to do one thing, and it looks like your intelligence is telling you to do something else. Which thing do you do? Can anybody answer my question?
Yeah, I can answer that question. The most important thing is association. There are many ways to get an answer. For example, in law, what they do to get an answer to a complex law situation is they go to the law books and they study them and they get a precedent. And in law, the most important thing is the written statement that's submitted to the court on the points related to the clients or the plaintiff and the defendant. So you go to the law books of Krishna consciousness and study them. That's very important. Not just try to think, well, what should I do? But go and find out what to do from the law books that we have, which are our books and the tapes and the lectures. That's one way, brother. Now, in our particular work here with the Prabhupada Disciples Association, the Hare Krishna Society, we also take the advice of others. We really do. And as you know, we have a Brahminical board, which is operating for the Hare Krishna Society in Twain Harte, California. And the devotees on this board are capable of giving solid advice to its members when it's called upon to do so. So Guru, Shastra, Sadhu. Through the Shastras, the teachings of Krishna, through the spiritual master, and one should study what he says carefully like we do. And then, if you're still confused, and this is always good advice, is to associate with like-minded people like yourself and me. We can talk on the phone. I can ask you questions. If I get confused, you can give me answers. And then I can figure out what to do. Or usually I call on a group of people, not just one. I call 3, 4, 5 good God brothers to give me advice on a particular approach to a problem. And Krishna will reveal to you through the association. This is called istagosti, where you associate with like-minded. We used to do this with Dharma Bhavana, in the temples. We would run these weekly meetings. So, because there was all kinds of details that we were trying to resolve in dealing with problems. So instead of trying to run it as a dictatorship like the ISKCON gurus do, we go to the assembly of God brothers, like Murli Krishna was in the temple, and Jita Kandarpa, and a lot of these people have disappeared. I don't know where they are, but nonetheless, back then it was the heyday of association. There were so many wonderful devotees. We take the advice from them and pray to the Lord, and then Krishna will reveal what should be done or shouldn't be done. Krishna has a way of revealing to us what to do, and it usually comes in the association of devotees, like all of us in the Prabhupada Disciples Association. Yashodanandana, Prabhu, could you further maybe explain for the group?
This point about Ishtagoshti is very important.
Yes.
And unfortunately, with the advent of the dictatorship system that was introduced in 1978, that Ishtagoshti feature basically wiped out. Because when we tried to have an Ishtagoti with some of the then powers that be, and raised up various arguments that you people are introducing new procedures, new methods of worship, new titles, new pujas that Prabhupada did not introduce or discuss at all in the last few months of his manifested presence in 1977, all hell break loose. Instead of answering the point, all there was, well, you're all envious. You should be like the 5 Pandavas who accepted Maharaj Yudhishthira as the leader. Well, besides the glaring deficiency of comparing themselves to the 5 Pandavas, who are eternal associates of Krishna, that's a different point altogether. But the point is, They didn't deal with the issue, and it still has not been dealt with 46 years later, because that whole system was not based on Prabhupada's instruction. They suppressed the discussion. They purposely concealed and oppressed any devotees that wanted to discuss this issue. They purposely suppress the availability of full, complete transcripts of these conversations. Prabhupada's will was not available for 10 years. These important conversations where Prabhupada discussed these issues were not available. Complete, unedited transcripts were not available for 10 years. In Mayapur in 1978, when the devotees assembled for the first time after the departure of Srila Prabhupada, there was no public discussion of this issue. Nobody brought up this so-called appointment tape. They ran across the river to get some advice from some advisor, claiming that they had been authorized by Prabhupada to give advice, and they put out a report that had so many contradictions from Prabhupada's teachings. The primary one, which was, well, if you put on the uniform of the guru, it will tell you what to do. What kind of nonsense idea is that? And then they try to tell the devotees that they had consulted with higher authorities. Oh, excuse me. Excuse us. Who are these higher authorities? They still haven't explained. The fact of the matter is, if somebody wants to understand Prabhupada's teachings, it's not complicated. We have Prabhupada's books, original books, for those who are intelligent to understand this point. We have Prabhupada's tapes. We have Prabhupada's kirtans. We have Prabhupada's lectures. We have Prabhupada's conversations. You can watch Prabhupada on video. Prabhupada is almost more available now than he was before. During Prabhupada's time, you had to get a physical tape recorder, record it on an audio tape, send it to some other place, and then make a copy. Now, with the internet and these YouTubes and all these electronic communications, you can get so many lectures from Prabhupada right there. But foolish people say, oh, he's not physically present. Well, he's not and he is. He is physically present in his murti, in his picture, in his books, and in the hearts and minds of his sincere followers. This is not difficult to understand. When Prabhupada was asked the question, what is going to happen to the movement in the United States after you die? His first reaction is, I shall never die. I shall live from my books and you will utilize. Why is it they never discussed this? When Prabhupada said, what we have heard from the spiritual master that is living, January 13th, 1969, Srimad Bhagavatam lecture in Los Angeles, California. Why is it they don't discuss this? That statement in the third canto, where Prabhupada wants us to understand philosophy through philosophy and logic, not physically. This is a Vani philosophy, not a Vapuvad philosophy. Very important points. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Well, I can say that why they don't is because they're personally motivated for their own glorification and their own material success. And secondly, the higher authority at the time, a lot of times Yashoda, and by the way, I was 1978, interesting to note, just as you brought it up, when we did come to Mayapur, I was voted in as the chairman of the temple presidents globally by our peers. And I was in the GBC meeting. I was actually the first non-GBC person to attend a GBC meeting in Mayapur in the history of our movement. And you're absolutely right. They did not discuss anything about what Prabhupada wanted to do after his disappearance for the management of the society. They had already made up their minds to divide the world up into different zonal guru places and then run the society that way. We're moving to the end of the class, unfortunately, everyone, because we're at 9:30, but we're going to bring Nilesh Sharma from Miami. I know there was some excitement down in Miami this week. Some ISKCON guru got arrested He's still in jail. Prabhu,
Really?
how are you? Absolutely.
Hare Krishna.
Adi Karta got arrested
Oh,
for
really? For what?
it appears to be child abuse and some kind of other thing. I was speaking to the Prabhu's brother is a friend of mine from Chicago. They're twin brothers, and this guy got caught by the police ramming his brother's car and
Oh my God.
committing all kinds of offenses. And I posted up this devotee sent me the charge according to the court, and he's still in jail as far as I can see. Nobody's been posted a bond for him to get out. Too bad, eh?
Oh my God.
So go ahead, please. Say what you have to
It's
say.
interesting. It's interesting to say because Adikarta was giving the Sunday class on Miami ISKCON Temple on Sunday.
Yeah, well, he's in jail now. Good for him.
Hare Krishna.
Have fun, you punk.
Answering the question, we were just discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, and whenever you have a conflict between your heart and your mind, as far as focusing on Krishna consciousness, as you correctly said, that we need to study Prabhupada's books, original books, as scrutinizingly as possible.
Yeah.
And so Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 16. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 16. In the purport, Prabhupada gives a very clear indication. He says that when the mind acts under the spiritual urge, it acts wonderfully for going back home, back to Godhead. For a life in complete bliss and eternity. Now, this is very critical. Whenever we have a materialistic mind, because of our association with materialism, the mind has to be manipulated by good and unalloyed intelligence. By good and unalloyed intelligence.
Mhm.
Perfect intelligence is to render service unto the Lord. One should be intelligent enough to understand that the living being is in all circumstances a servant of the circumstances. Every living being is serving the diktats of desire, anger, lust, illusion, insanity, and enviousness, all materially affected. So whenever we are in this kind of a dilemma, I think we need to go into a little introspection. Whether I am being drawn materially through these temperaments, which is lust, desire, anger, illusion, insanity, and enviousness. Or am I being drawn towards Krishna consciousness? And I can tell you that 99% of the time, or almost 100% of the time, if you listen to your mind, it is tending towards materialism. And if you listen to your heart, it is tending towards spiritualism. Because ultimately, where do we all reside in? In our heart as the spirit soul. What would you like to say, Prabhuji? Hare Krishna.
Well, we're going to end up the program. I saw Tim Lee had his hand up, so I'm going to let him comment. But in the class, we have discussed about the example of Jayananda Nilesh Sharma on how he was able to surrender everything that he owned, everything that he had, everything he gave away at the lotus feet of the service of the mission of Srila Prabhupada. And that is really what we should all strive for in this stage of our life, is to do everything for the pleasure of Krishna. I know Tim Puranjan has some information on this arrest of this fellow Adi Karta. Maybe we can wind up with a little bit of information on that, and then we'll go to the kirtan. Go ahead.
Haribo, can you hear me?
Yeah, Puranjana,
Yes.
please.
Yeah, so the Adi Karta situation, he was trying to initiate this man's wife
Yeah,
and essentially steal the wife from the sky.
yeah.
And he was on the verge of taking the wife away. The man tried to interfere. And there was no child abuse per se, but what happened, the man happened to be holding a 4-year-old child. And when Adikarta attacked the man, the child was apparently, somehow or other maybe injured or I don't know what, but
Traumatized.
yeah, so that's the child abuse charge that this guy was holding the baby and Adikarta hit the man holding the baby. But
Well, he was smashing the car too. The
oh
police
yeah,
saw him. The
yeah,
police saw him smashing the car. So this
right.
pure devotee, so called, it was
Yeah, he just
obviously
totally lost it
confused.
because he had previously said that he needs disciples because he needs the money from these disciples for his retirement. He had actually made that statement. So this guy was thinking, wait a minute, my wife's going to be initiated by this guy. He just
Yeah.
admitted that he needs money. So I'm going to be just, like a sponge of money for this guy, and I don't want to be, involved with that. But they were already trying to spin it. A follower of ID Carter wrote me a letter saying, "Oh, that's not what happened. You don't know." But, all that. They're trying to spin it already. But
Yeah, it's their
we
liars.
we know what happened. He just completely lost it and went violently crazy. But he has resigned. Apparently, he has made a public statement now that he's no longer a guru. Probably that he knew they were gonna remove him anyway. He knew that. He knew that
Oh,
the boom was coming down because he was on his way to Mayapur.
oh.
That's where yeah, he was going to be going to Mayapur with this woman. That was the plan. Take the woman to Mayapur, initiate her there, and just, do everything like, you know, behind the back of the husband, apparently.
Well, we'll get
But
all the information
yeah,
from
the
his
more
twin
will come out, but
brother.
more people are writing to me more, information about it. So we'll have more updates, but
Yeah, I'll share it
just
with you.
just the basic idea is he lost it. That's the basic idea. He just completely went bonkers.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It is
But I'll
unfortunate.
tell you one thing. It is the responsibility of a person that wants to pretend, pose, and posture as a guru to try to uphold the principles of Chaitanya Vaishnavism according to Srila Prabhupada's direction. And it is apparent, everyone, that this is not the case even in 2024. Whether it was your involvement with Sulochan and then all of these people from Keitham to Radhanath to this Tirtha guy, and all these other people that were involved in this conspiracy. This is a complete revelation to all of us of how bogus this movement that Prabhupada gloriously started has been destroyed by the whimsical behavior of these mundaners. This is pathetic.
Oh,
Anyway,
one
we'll
one
leave it
last
up.
one one
Go
last
ahead,
thing
please.
I wanted to
Sorry.
add is
Yes, yes.
anybody. There's a bunch of websites where they,
Yeah,
put out people's mugshots and all the details. Well, everybody in the prison knows he has a child abuse charge, number one
yes.
charge, child abuse. So in the prison, he's basically toast. I mean, because the prisoners just can't stand, and he might try to explain it, or they don't care, in the prison. So I think he's going to really be in rough shape in prison. And someone wrote to tell me that.
I'd say he is in rough shape, and
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is called, as John Lennon called it, instant karma is going to get you. So let it be, and we'll go forward. Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to
Oh,
mention under Vinyak Sharma, I had a talk with him, and he wanted me to announce as anyone who is expert in graphic design or any other expertise in marketing online, please get in touch with us, me or Yashoda, on Facebook or our emails to discuss how you can help us propagate what we're doing globally to establish Prabhupada as the bona fide spiritual master without question. And Vinkat Bhatta, if you could just show the invitation card for the last section of the program today. We have an invitation card we created. Vincott did an excellent job on the artwork for it. Here it is here. Now, if you want the artwork for this, please send a request to him, and he'll send you the artwork for printing in your local area for distribution to people. So if they ask you what you're doing, you can say, well, here, take this and try to attend our classes, or they can go on the YouTube channel. On the back there, you'll see the Hare Krishna Society YouTube channel. And I believe we have over 250 classes there. And there's all of our pertinent information online, so they can look it up, they can source it, and if they're interested in, bring some books, you can distribute them to them. Or at the top there's a box above the top, Nilesh Shama. There's a box at the top, you can put your number in there, and they can contact you locally, wherever you are, to get some association from real devotees like yourself in the Miami area who need help to get out of this problem that people like Adi Karta and the rest of them are creating for sincere people that are looking for the truth. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you Saturday morning at 10 a.m. For the Bhagavad Gita as it is class, and Sunday this week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Srimad Bhagavatam class. So enjoy the rest of the week and keep chanting the holy names. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Let us offer our respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thanks everybody for participating.